All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We are going to deconstruct what it really takes to build a world-class tech career. And no, we're not talking about theory here. We're using one person's actual 30-year journey as our blueprint, our case study, to see how expertise is forged in the real world. So let's dive in and break it down.
So let's just jump right in with a bit of a riddle. What on earth does a chemist, in a lab coat working with beakers, have in common with a massive airplane getting serviced on the tarmac? I know, it sounds like the start of a really weird joke, right? But stick with me because the answer is, well, it's pretty fascinating.
Well, the answer is, they're both part of this same 30-year tech career. A single, incredible career that connects both of those worlds, and a whole lot more. And this, right here, perfectly shows us that the path to the top in tech, it's almost never a straight line. It's usually this winding road, full of what look like totally unrelated experiences that somehow, brilliantly, build on each other.
Okay, so the person whose career we're digging into is Biplab Journey. Now, for our story today, let's think of him as a digital architect. He's the guy who designs and builds the gigantic, complex software systems that are the backbone for huge global companies. So let's start with the big picture, the key pieces of his journey.
First up, the technical foundation. We're talking 19 years. That's almost 2 decades of deep, hands-on experience in something called SAP. Now don't worry, we're going to get to what that actually means in just a sec. But for now, just think of this as the absolute bedrock of his tech skills.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This is the first big twist. That deep tech experience is paired with 12 years in the chemical industry. Yeah, you heard that right, specifically in export management and international business. And this isn't just some side gig or a footnote on his resume. We're talking about a completely separate, fully formed career that he built before he ever touched the tech world.
And when I say global, I mean seriously global. He was managing export operations across 23 different countries. Think about that. What this tells us is that he had this deep, real-world understanding of how international business actually works, long before he ever started writing code to solve those same kinds of problems.
Okay, so I promised we'd get to this. What exactly is SAP? Well, it's not just some app on your phone. It's like the central nervous system for a giant company. It's the massive software that manages literally everything: finance, logistics, HR, you name it. It's what allows a huge global corporation to act like one single unified entity. Super important stuff.
So you're probably wondering, how does a journey like this even kick off? You might think it's a computer science degree, right? Nope. It starts with a master's in polymer sciences and a bachelor's in chemistry. Yeah, the whole story begins in a world of molecules, not megabytes.
And this timeline here, this really shows you that critical turning point. Look, he starts in '94. And for more than a decade, he's building this solid career in export management. But then you see that conscious choice he makes to go back and get a business diploma. That's the setup. And then boom, 2006, he makes the leap, diving headfirst into the super complex world of SAP.
And let's be clear, he wasn't just, coasting in that first career. He was a genuine high performer. He didn't just manage exports, he grew the entire export volume by over 60%. That's huge. And this is a really crucial point. He was already an expert in one field before he made the gutsy call to become a beginner all over again in a completely new one.
See, this big jump into tech wasn't a fluke. It wasn't an accident at all. It was a really smart strategic move. All that deep knowledge he had about how global business actually works on the ground, that became the perfect launchpad for his new career, designing the very systems that make all of that stuff run. It's a beautiful transition.
So how do you even do that? How do you build expertise in a new field from the ground up? Well, here's the playbook. Step 1, you go learn from the giants. His first gigs were with huge names like Nestle and Philip Morris. Step 2, you build your skills in the real world, in high-stakes environments where things can actually go wrong. And step 3, you go global. You take what you've learned and apply it to complex international projects, dealing with all the challenges that come with that. Okay, now this is where the story gets really good. This is where the rubber meets the road, the moment when all that deep technical skills starts to solve real, tangible, and super important business puzzles. Let me show you what I mean with a couple of killer examples. All right, picture this. I want you to put yourself in his shoes for a second. The challenge, you're at AmerisourceBergen, one of the biggest pharma distributors on the planet.
Your job is to make sure that life-saving medicines are tracked flawlessly, and I mean flawlessly, across 26 different distribution centers, all to satisfy federal regulators. Talk about pressure. The stakes just don't get any higher than that.
So what was the solution? He came up with this really creative, custom system for their regulatory reporting. And it didn't just work. It was so good, so innovative, that he won a Best Performer award, handed to him by the company's CIO. See? This wasn't just about writing code. This was about creative, elegant problem-solving when the heat was on. Okay, let's jump from pharmaceuticals completely over to aviation. The challenge now is at Air France-KLM, and this one is just a monster of scale. You have to track millions, literally millions, of individual airplane parts. We're talking everything from a tiny screw to a giant engine component, all across a massive worldwide network. And the goal? To make sure every single plane is safe to fly. No big deal, right?
And the solution here? A custom-designed logistics system that he was the architect of. It basically automated the whole process of packaging and delivering these critical parts. What that does is it creates incredible efficiency and, more importantly, accuracy in a system where there's absolutely zero room for error. This is a perfect example of how tech expertise translates directly into safety.
But here's the thing about a tech career. You can't ever stand still. You just can't rest on your laurels. Once you've mastered the systems that run the business, the game changes. You have to master where those systems are going next. And today, that means the cloud. And of course, AI. It's the natural, necessary evolution.
And he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. I mean, look at this. These certifications from AWS, Microsoft, Google, IBM. This isn't just collecting badges. This shows a deliberate, systematic commitment to mastering the next wave of technology. It's all about future-proofing your skills, staying relevant, and staying on top. Okay, so we've walked through this whole incredible journey. What's the big takeaway? What have we learned here? Let's try to put it all together and figure out the core ingredients, the actual anatomy of an expert like this. When you really boil it down, it seems to come down to these 4 pillars that all support each other. First, you've got the technical mastery. That's the price of admission. But what makes that so powerful is the second pillar, that deep, deep industry knowledge. His background in commerce wasn't a detour, it was his secret weapon. It was the competitive advantage that let him understand why the technology mattered in the first place. And that powerful combo fuels the third pillar, global leadership. And the engine that drives it all, that fourth pillar, a relentless, nonstop commitment to learning. So, in the end, I think this story shows us something really important. Expertise, it's not a destination you arrive at. It's not a title you get and then you're done. It's a journey. It's this dynamic, ongoing process of building and pivoting, and always learning. So the question this whole thing leaves me with, and maybe it's a question for you too, is what's the next step on your journey?